Welcome to my tutorial for Math 7 lessons of Quarter 1, week number 7. So before anything else, let's have a review on the principal roots, rational and irrational. So principal root, it is a positive square root of a number, and principal roots may be rational or irrational. So what is rational number? If a number is a perfect square or a perfect end root, then the principal root is rational. And irrational number. If a number is not a perfect square or a perfect end root, then the principal root is irrational. And let's have an activity entitled Classify Me. Direction. You're going to classify the following radicals whether rational or irrational. Okay, number 1, square root of 20, square root of 100, square root of 15, and square root of 54. Okay, so let's have a table for rational and irrational. Okay, so we will start on square root of 20. So is square root of 20 rational or irrational? Is 20 a perfect square or not a perfect square? Yes, it is not a perfect square. Therefore, square root of 20 is under irrational. How about the square root of 100? Is 100 a perfect square? Yes, square root of 100 is exactly 10, and that is an example of rational. Next, square root of 15. Is it a perfect square? No, therefore square root of 15 is irrational. And we have also square root of 54. 54 is not a perfect square, so it should be written under irrational. So that's the difference between rational and irrational. So we have our keyword perfect square or perfect nth root, that is irrational. In opposite, we have irrational, not a perfect square, not a perfect nth root. Okay, so lesson for today is all about principal root and irrational numbers. So we have two objectives. So at the end of this tutorial, you are able to estimate the square root of a whole number to the nearest tenth. And number 2, to plot rational numbers up to square roots on a number line. So we are going to focus on the irrational numbers, okay? So to begin with, let's have the estimating square roots of a whole number, and we have following steps to be followed. Number 1, determine between what two integers the square root of a number is. Okay, so let's have an example. Square root of 20 is not, or is an example of what? It is not a perfect square, right? 20 is not a perfect square, but it is in between of two perfect squares. Okay, square root of 20, a perfect square less than square root of 20 is square root of 16. And a perfect square higher than 20 is square root of 25. We all know that the square root of 16 is exactly 4, and the square root of 25 is 5. So these are the two numbers in between of square root of 20, which means that square root of 20 lies between 4 and 5. So that's the first thing to do in step number 1. So you are going to find out the in-between or two integers in between of the given radical. Next, let's have number 2. Okay, so we have two processes in step number 2. Number 1 is take the midway of the two principal roots and then find its square. Okay, for our solution, the midway between 4 and 5. So the principal roots are 4 and 5. Okay? And the midway is 4.5. How did we get 4.5? That is taken from 4 or 4 plus 5 divided by 2. So if we will take the midway, so you are going to add the two principal roots and then divided by 2, and it gives 4.5. And from that result, 4.5 should be squared. Okay, find its square. So it becomes 4.5 times 4.5 is equal to 20.25. So this is now the what? Square of the midway between, it is what we call the square of the midway between 4 and 5. And for step number 3, okay, the squared value. If the squared value of the midway is greater, okay, so you are greater than the principal root, compute the squares between the lesser integer added by, so what is the lesser integer? We have 4, right? So that is, it should be added by 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, and 0.1 respectively. And if the squared value of the midway is less than the principal root, compute the squares between the greater integer added by 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, and 0.9 respectively. I hope you are following. So we have 4 steps. For our solution in step 3 and 4, the midway between 4 and 5 is 4.5 and the square is 20.25. So if you will compare 20 and 20.25, 20.25 is greater than 20. Where did we get 20? This is the given, right? Square root of 20. Okay? So, the squared midway is greater than 20. Okay? And according to the step, compute the squares between the lesser integer added by 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, and 0.1 respectively. Why? Because the squared midway, okay, the squared midway is greater than the given, okay? Therefore, in order to estimate the square root of 20 to the nearest 10, let's have a table, okay? Let's have the first column, which is the value of x. Okay, take note that in x, we have 4.1. Okay, saan natin nakuha yung 4? Okay, so this is lesser, right? Lesser. So we have the midway. Okay, the two integers are 4 and 5. So you are going to take what? You're going to take the lesser integer or the lesser principal root added by 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. Yan. And then on the second column, you square the midway. You square x. 4.1 squared is 16.81. So try to solve that in your scratch paper if it is 16.81. The square of 4.2 is 17.64. The square of 4.3 is 18.49. And the square of 4.4 is 19.36. Take note that our target is 20. The given radical is square root of 20. And we all know that 16.81 is close to 20, right? Next, we have 17.64 is closer to 20. Same true to 18.49. Closer pa rin siya. And then, 19.36 is closest. Okay, so this is closest to 20. And that square root of 20 is equal to 4.4. And 4.4 is the estimated what? Estimated principal root of square root of 20 to the nearest 10. Oh, so ganun lang. Apat lang na apat lang na steps ang susundan ninyo para ma-estimate ninyo yung radical. Take note that all examples in this lesson are irrational. They are not perfect square. The radicands are not in perfect square. Next, let's have another one. Estimate the principal root of square root of 15 to the nearest 10. What are we going to do? Okay, first, find the in-between integers. The square root of a number is. Okay, what are those in between two integers or two integers in between of the given number? Square root of 15. Perfect square less than square root of 50. So yun palagi. Hanapin mo yung perfect square na less than and greater than the given radicand. And that is square root of 9. Perfect square less than 15 is 9. Perfect square greater than 15 is 16. And square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 16 is 4. Okay, take note that square root of 15 lies between 3 and 4. Okay, so wag kalilimutan yan because in the next step, you're going to find out for the midway. Okay, for the midway of 3 and 4, and that is how many? 3.5. Okay, you square 3.5. That is 12.25, right? 12.25. And 12.25 is it number 3 or number 4? That is number 4. The squared value of the midway is less than the principal. So compute the squares between the greater integer added by 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9. Okay, so ito na yung solution natin. Correct. So we have 12.25 and it is less than 15. Therefore, we are going to make use of what? 0.6, 0.7 until 0.9 using what integer? Using what integer? That is 3, right? Okay, so doon sa midway, dito sa midway, dito sa two integers natin, ang kukunin mong principal root is 3 added by itong decimal na ito, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, and 0.9. And then, gagawa ka ngayon ng table to determine which among of the squared, squared value is closest to our target radical, which is square root of 15. And that is 14.44 ang pinakamalapit sa 15. And that Square root of 15 is equal to 3.8. Okay? Naintindihan? Okay, next. Will you please try this one? Estimate square root of 54 to the nearest 10. What is your answer? What are the two integers between square root of 54? We have 7. And that is what? Square of 7 or 7.5, right? 7.5 is the midway. Okay, and that is greater than. So you are going to make use of 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4. And which one among these is closest to 54? Do not choose the result which is more than 54. So we will have 53.29. Therefore, the estimated principal root or square root of 54 is 7.7. So, ganun lang siya kadali. Kung hindi mo siya nasundan and then you go over to the examples given. Okay? Yung previous examples natin. And that, in your activity sheet, in week number 7, activity number 1, which is approximating roots, you're going to estimate each square root to the nearest 10. Okay? So, nandyan na yung magiging sagot ninyo using the 4 steps. Okay, so yun yung gagawin ninyo. Kung ano yung ginawa ko doon sa demonstration ko kanina, ganun din yung gagawin ninyo. But, in here, in your paper, it should be your final answer. Okay, final answer. And in activity 2, the same. But this time, you have choices. Okay? So you are going to match the estimated root of the following whole numbers in column A to column B. So from numbers 1 to 10, you write your right letters only. For instance, in number 1, square root of 143. Suppose your answer is 6.2. No. So let's have 11.9. Let's say 11.9. Then 11.9 is in letter M. Right? So number 1 is letter M. This is just an example. Let's say in number 6, square root of 5. Suppose square root of 5 is 2.2. Then, your answer in number 6 is letter S. So that's an example, but it is not. No, it is just an example. Do not assume that that is the correct answer. You have to compute, okay? You compute. Mag-compute tayo para malaman natin yung estimated root of the following whole numbers in column A. Next, for activity number 3, that is a puzzle. The title is A Maze in Approximation. Okay, so what are you going to do? Get to the finish line of the maze by approximating roots of the following whole numbers to the nearest tens. Mark the answer by shading. Okay, so you are going to start here. Dito. Okay, and the first radical is square root of 45. So what is the approximate principal root of square root of 45 to the nearest tens? Okay, so you have your choices in here. So it could be 6.5, 6.3, 6.7. Which among of these is the approximate principal root of square root of 45? And then after that, suppose it is 6.5, then you shade square root of 72. Tama? Dito naman sa square root of 72, dalawa na naman yung choices ninyo. Either 10.4 or 8.5. Halimbawa kung 8.5, o di tapos na, ano ang isi-shade ninyo? So we have square root of 45, square root of 72, and then finish. Ganun siya. Parang kagaya nito. Ayan. Mag-start ka sa square root of 45, so you shade square root of 45. Pwede mong gamitan ng coloring material just like your crayon, your pencil, colored pencil. Okay? Halimbawa, ang sagot ay 6.5, so you are going to shade square root of 72. Halimbawa, kung ang naging sagot dito ay square root of 108, i-shade mo yung 108. Tama? Ganyan. Hanggang sa makarating ka dito sa finish line. So, meron kayong mga options dito, yung mga choices ninyo kung nasaan dyan. So, meron na kayong mga hint. Diba? So, kinakailangan matapos mo hanggang sa finish. Okay? Doon sa finish. Next. How are we going to plot principal roots on a number line? Okay. So, ito yung number line natin. Take note that in our previous lesson, kapag number line, ni-introduce ko sa inyo yung integers, meron tayong negative numbers, 0, and positive numbers, right? This time, since we are dealing on principal roots, you are going to start your number line in 0 and then positive numbers because principal root does not have negatives, okay? So, starting from 0 and then goes to the right. But make it sure na meron pa rin tayong left, okay? Yung natin, arrow to the left and arrow to the right. Okay. So, let's say, doon sa previous example natin, square root of 15. You're going to estimate and plot square root of 15 to the nearest 10. Yan. So, anong naging sagot natin kanina? 14.44. Ngayon, that is equivalent to 3.8 as the estimated principal root of square root of 15. And then, in the number line, so you are going to plot or locate the exact location. Okay? The exact location of 3.8. And that is 3.8 is in between of 3 and 4, right? Pero nasa ang banda siya. Okay, so you are going to find out the location of 3.8. Ganon. So maglalagay kayo ng points. Darker points. Okay? Next. In your activity, first activity, in part 2 of AS Week 7, so plotting square roots. Draw a number line and plot the following. Okay, let's say square root of 30. Okay, so you are going to draw a number line and then ipa-plot mo yung square root of 30. What is square root of 30? That is in between of what two integers? That is 5 and 6. So that is 5 point something, right? Pero what is specific decimal number is 5 point something. So, yun yung hanapin mo. Tapos, gumawa ka na ng, i-draw mo yan sa number line. And then, we have also letter Y, square root of 60, letter L, lahat ito. So, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, you are going to make 8 number line in every letter. Okay? So, individual number line ang gagawin mo dito para mas malinis siya. Okay, nagkakaintindihan? Okay, for activity number 2, entitled, Where is that rational in the number line? Okay, direction, graph the numbers on a number line, 7.25, square root of 45, square root of 70, 9 over 5, and 5.5. So, i-graph mo siya dito sa number line. Nasa ang banda kaya yung 7.25. You all know that this is a decimal number and it is in between of 7 and 8. Nasa ang banda siya. Okay, yung 0.25. What part of fraction is 0.25? This is 1/4, right? So, hanapin mo dito yung 1/4. Di ba, 1 whole yan? So, kunin mo dito yung 1/4 and that is 7.25. Parang kagaya nito. Graph the following. Okay, using the number line. Square root of 30. What is square root of 30? That is in between of 5 and 6. Tama? That is 5 point, how many? Square root of, what is square root of 30? That is 5.4. So, i-compute ninyo using the 4 steps. Square root of 30 is 5.4 and that is in between of 5 and 6. Yon. Almost 1/2, di ba? Almost nasa pinakagitna yung point. Next, we have 8/5. What is 8/5? That is 1 and 3/5. Right? 1 and 3/5. So you are going to divide this into 3 equal parts. Diba? Because 3/5 is 0.6. Tama? 3/5 is 0.6. So, nasa ang banda siya? Okay, so doon siya, lumampas siya doon sa kalahati because it is 0.6. Next, we have 6.5. Okay, this is exactly between 6 and 7 at the center of 6.6 and 7. So, ganun lang yung gagawin mo dito sa activity number 2. So, iisang number line ang gagamitin mo sa activity number 2. Parang ganyan ang mangyayari na sa sagot mo. Ganito ang magiging sagot mo. Okay? Pero sa baba niya, let's say square root of 30, dito sa baba, lagay mo dito yung square root of 30. Okay? Yung 8/5 naman, dito ilalagay mo yung 8/5. Dito naman, 6.5, ilalagay mo dito yung 6.5. Okay? Para hindi tayo malito, kagaya ng 7.25, isulat mo dito yung 7.25, square root of 45, square root of 70. Dapat nakalagay siya dyan para alam ko kung saan ko siya i-check. Pero kung point lang ang inilagay mo, it is invalid. Okay? Pag yung inilagay mo lang dyan ay point, wala siyang label. Kagaya nito, ang label nitong line na ito, coordinate na ito is 0, 1. So, dapat, halimbawa yung square root of 45 mo, dito mo siya inilagay. Nandito yung point mo. Kapag ganyan, point lang inilagay mo, that is incorrect. Dapat meron siyang label na square root of 45. Okay? Nagkakaintindihan tayo? Next, let's have our last activity. Plotting rational numbers. Okay. So this time, this is in opposite of activity number 3. Kanina, tayo ay nag-locate. Dito naman, hahanapin natin. Okay? Let's say square root of 5. Anong point siya? Is it A, point B, point C, point D, point E? Diba? So, if we have a square root of 5, that is in between of what? Two perfect square. We have 4 and 9. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. So, that is in between of 2 and 3. So, meron na tayong sagot dito, which is A. Tama? Which is A. So, ganun yung gagawin ninyo. So, yung sagot natin from numbers 1 to 5 ay A, B, C, D, E. Okay? Letters lang ang ilalagay natin dyan. Okay? Any problem or any questions so far? So, if there are no questions, thank you and have a nice day. Goodbye.